I'm Matt Gibberd, co-founder of The Modern House.
I'm Nigel. Hello Nigel, nice to meet you, Matt.
Our Homing In series explores the meaning of home in people's lives. Today we're in rural Devon to meet a retired couple who built a house that celebrates nature in all its untamed glory. Nigel and Eileen Dutt spend their days growing vegetables, photographing flowers and chasing after mischievous moles.
Whoa. What have you seen? It's on the move.
Their home is a Passivhaus, which means it's highly energy efficient, costs nothing to run, and is healthy and comfortable too. We'll hear about how they plan to spend the rest of their lives there, and why the design of the house means it should be around for hundreds of years to come. What a lovely, lovely, lovely room to arrive in. So
the idea is it's sort of an extension of the garden, another little walled garden in its own right.
I see. Yeah. So everything's arranged around this sort of winter garden almost.
Yeah. Somebody wrote about the house that it was a revived Roman villa.
Yes, exactly.
That's the layout.
If we came here on an average day, what would you be doing here?
If you came for dinner,
yeah,
you would have your drinks in here so that you wouldn't watch me cooking.
My only job is to keep people in here and not interfere with Eileen.
Okay.
And that's harder than you think.
Why don't you like being watched when you're cooking?
I make mistakes.
The plaster is pure clay plaster.
Okay.
Clayworks plaster. So we've tried to keep, as you can see, we have a bit of a clay pottery fetish. So this room sort of reflects that with clay all round.
Okay.
And then this open view to the sky and the trees.
Clay is hygroscopic, isn't it? So it absorbs moisture from the air.
Yes, yeah.
It's a much healthier alternative to conventional plaster.
Yeah.
And so from here, we've arrived and we're at this sort of central point. So where would we naturally go next?
Probably through into the open plan.
Okay, let's do it.
When we first met the architects down in our old house, looking towards our site, we set a goal that when we do come here, we'll be able to look back at our old house, and we have to be able to look back with no regrets. And they succeeded in that. We look back, partly because we think of our power bills.
Yes,
there's a negative in this house, and we're highly positive in that house with its oil-fired central heating.
Yeah, you've timed that well.
Yes.
So that wasn't your house for life. Is this your house for life? Is that how
was the goal?
That was the goal.
Yeah, carried out in a box was the goal. But I know you shouldn't tempt Providence. So unless through force majeure.
Some of the earliest comments, not least from your brother, was, "Oh, you're building a bungalow," and so it kind of said, "Oh gosh, that's the view people have of it." And then you think, should you feel embarrassed? Have you let the side down? Have you let the village down? All sorts of things like that.
So do you think that there's a sense of timelessness to the way you've designed the house?
I definitely think so, because it's not the sort of bling shape of the moment. What our architects said was when they chose the bricks, they'd have a mother-daughter relationship, the old wall and the new wall, which was wonderful because it's a mother-daughter practice. And that just means, I think, that it is not a fashion that will disappear, in the next generation. It will look as timeless as that 300-year-old brick wall of the walled garden outside.
To the uninitiated, what is Passivhaus and why is it important?
Basically, it's super insulated, and that includes both the materials that it's made out of, and the other big thing is that it's super airtight. The biggest cost of heating loss is draughts. So you have a test when building a Passivhaus where basically they block off a door, stick a big fan in it and suck some of the air out of the house and watch how long it takes to come back. And we can see the difference in that our running cost bills are negative.
So they're giving you money back?
Yes, effectively.
Yeah.
And in a few hundred years' time, we might have paid for the house.
Yeah.
There's been a cost in building it, like there always is.
Yeah.
But we feel we're not costing much to run it. Our electric car runs basically off our solar power. And when we had our eco report done on the land before we started, we were told that it was of negligible ecological value. He said planting one daffodil would improve our ecological footprint. So I think you've planted, I think there's 130 or 40 trees and about 400 metres of hedgerow, apart from all the plants. So we've definitely improved on one daffodil.
The building materials we used SIPS panels, which almost gave it to us anyway.
Right.
These wonderful SIPS panels, which are made locally in Tiverton. There's methods of taping that you use, and all the guys went on training courses to learn how to do that.
So you tape up the gaps.
You tape up the
Every
gaps,
joint.
every
Yeah.
joint.
Yeah.
And you forget what the weather's like outside. And you're sitting here in your t-shirt in winter, and you're lulled into...
Yes, open the front door.
Yes,
It's a shock.
yes, it is a shock.
Yeah.
And people often walk in freezing, shivering, and they say, oh, how warm it is, and we don't even have heating on.
Of course, the other prerequisite is that you have the MVHR system, mechanical ventilation and heat recovery. Every few hours, all the air in the house is replaced by outside air. An article came out that sort of said, it headlined as usual, you know, you could die of asphyxia in a passive house. And then down to the detail, it said, but of course you have to have an MVHR system and everything's fine. But we've met so many people, for some reason they all seem to be of a certain age, who've obviously read this and said, we insist you open the windows because we're going to die.
What I love as well, looking down this run of glazing, is your bird-like sculpture at the end is reflected in the glazing, and it's sort of drawing your eye out to the bird feeders beyond. So I'm imagining you get a lot of bird life coming,
Yes,
perching here.
yeah.
What kind of things do you see?
All the little birds on the feeders, all the blue tits and the goldfinches and the red woodpeckers. But then there's the 2 resident pigeons, the 2 resident crows, but they don't trouble the little birds.
The crow actually has a name because he's called the Pope, because if you ever watched the young Pope and the new Pope on TV, he strides up the terrace like Jude Law strode up the terrace in there. So he's called the Pope and his wife is called Mrs. Pope.
I love that, that's brilliant.
We got a new friend yesterday for the first time ever, a mole. So there's a molehill just out there.
Okay.
So yeah.
How do you feel about him?
I'm still processing that one.
We flattened it, put this mole scarer, beeps every now and then, on the patch where Eileen had flattened it.
Right.
And this morning it had put a hill on the same spot, so the mole scarer
It's
was
the
just
same top
raised
of it,
like a
like a
flag on
flag.
top of a mountain. Yeah. So it absolutely, you should send a photograph to the manufacturers because it's absolutely useless.
Did you plant this Acer?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's quite a Japanese influence again.
Yes, I love acers. I've got 3 or 4
Yeah.
in the garden. I just love his acers.
Why do you like them?
Well, I love their autumn colour. I love their ethereal leaves.
Yeah.
I'm terrified because the mole has come up, so I'm quite near that, and that one is the most beautiful one in the autumn, bright red.
Right.
And I hope it's not damaging its roots.
Is there a chance that the mole would kill it?
I don't know. It wouldn't eat the plant material, but if it puts air around the roots, and I don't know, it might do.
Yeah.
This is my wild side through here,
let's
so there's
go and
lots
have
of
a look,
little
Tom.
paths through here.
Just whoa.
What have you seen?
It's on the move. So the molehill is actually moving. That's the new one.
That wasn't there.
And
an
no, it's
hour
moving.
ago.
I just saw it. It's actually.
Oh, he's actually digging
it's
as we
actually digging
speak.
As we speak. I can blow Eileen's trumpet for her. So the structural shape of the garden she did in cahoots with the architects, but every other aspect, so all the planting, etc., subsequently, and the design of the garden is entirely Eileen's.
Mm.
Although that was informed really by the location, because if
Yeah.
you've got a woods there and farming fields there and a formal kitchen garden behind, it kind of identifies what you've got to do. So I just really did as I was told by the location.
Yes.
I love that. I love that approach. I'm going to do as I'm told by the landscapes. Yeah.
I'm good at doing as I'm told.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah. This is an interesting garden because it's a covered garden. So this one and the one you can see over in the distance, Eileen totally built in 2020 from bare earth up to what you see today in its second season.
What's your process then, Eileen? How did you start to conceive of this? If it's a lockdown project, what were you thinking?
Well, it had to be a garden for the library to look at straight outside. And apart from that, it was quite mundane really. It was, I took a mower and I thought, at what point do I fall sideways when I'm trying to mow? So I drew the line there, and below it was garden and above it was grass.
Although we picked our architects because we liked them and all that, I think we've appreciated more as we've lived in it just how smart they were about things. So they're holistic designers. So we've come across people who've had architect designed houses where the architects designed the shell, and then over to the interior design or whatever to do the inside, and ours designed every aspect of the house, down to quite small, just the shelves, the kitchens, the lighting.
Door handles, internal door handles, they designed themselves.
But I remember when Fiona visited once, and the door was open, and I said, "It's great, it lines up. You know, you can see that tree in the garden through that slot." And she said, "Well, yes, by design." Yeah, of course.
This pond was designed to look like the oriel window had just sort of like fallen onto it's the same dimensions as the window.
Is it really? It doesn't feel it.
It might not be, it might have lied.
Similar. Similar, yes. And how did you get the water to be black?
It's a food dye, which...
You put food dye in it?
Yeah.
It's a Chelsea trick.
It's great because it stops anything growing, so you don't get any weed or algae or anything. And when the sun comes out in the mornings, the ripples are all over the ceiling here, so it's just a wonderful effect. Okay,
I love that.
So this is an interesting design feature of the house that when we did the investigation in what had been there, that was the classic Georgian walled garden, and there was a crisscross paths right through the middle of it, and this line here was the main path through the garden, and that house there was the gardener's cottage. Okay. So the gardener's path from garden to cottage was here. So in the house design, the architects made this an axis through the house that exactly followed the path.
And you've got obviously a beautifully positioned sculpture out here which is luring us out there. Let's let it lead us out into the light.
Right. It stopped at this wall, and it was only when we were having a conversation with the neighbours about we were going to clean up the wall, and was that okay, probably put some scaffolding alongside it, that they asked us if we'd be interested in buying a bit of it. Before I could open my mouth and say, no, we don't want any more garden, Eileen, whose dream it was to have a walled garden, opened her mouth.
And do you look after all of this?
Yeah.
It's a huge amount of work, isn't
it? It's a full-time job, I mean, literally,
Yeah. So tell me about what it does for you mentally to get your hands on with the earth and with the flowers and the vegetables all the time.
It's hard to explain really. I mean, I think I'd be a different person without it. And part of it is just, I think if you work really hard, it feels good when it stops. There's a bit of that in it too. Yeah. but also it's I don't know, I mean, first thing in the morning, coming out here doing that, it's like the best part of the day. Yeah. And just the feeling of achievement, and it could all be just that it's a lot of work, and work is always good for you. That's my Scottish attitude coming out probably.
Yeah. Keeps you out of trouble.
Yeah, it's that. Yeah, I'd be really in trouble.
And she's a traditional no gloves. I was saying, why don't you wear gloves? But no,
you can't.
Real gardeners
No, you can't see my hands.
Gardeners like to feel the soil.
No.
So you want this to be much more meadow-like?
Yeah, this will get cut once a year, and the rest of the time it will be free for the insects. Yeah.
What I find is you plant things and then nature just finds you.
Yes,
right?
That's why you've got to leave it for a few. I'm leaving for a few years to see, well, what's going to come up naturally.
I mean, it looks lovely, doesn't it?
It does, I know.
It's like a sort of unkempt hairdo.
It's a bit like mine when I'm gardening.
So Eileen's definitely led me into appreciating gardens and gardenings, etc. So I've always been a keen photographer since whenever. So I like photographing things like racing cars and red arrows and things. And now probably the thing I photograph most is flowers and plants.
So that's Eileen's influence?
Definitely, yeah.
Well, that's great, isn't it?
So stopping and looking at them, which was something I wouldn't have done.
Yeah. And I suppose, it's not looking up so much into the sky at the red arrows, but more at what's immediately around you.
Yeah. If I could capture both. Well.
Yeah. A poppy and a red arrow in one shot.
Don't worry about plants, just machete them aside.
Yeah. But actually, it's really nice this. I always like it when you're walking down a narrow path and you're physically brushing against
Yeah,
the plants. It's much more interactive.
yeah. And I deliberately wanted it to be one person wide.
Right.
All the other paths, you can walk side by side, but this one I wanted just a one person
Why
wide.
did you want that?
I don't know, but it just felt right, just so that it was more for contemplation. You weren't walking having a conversation and not looking. You have to look where you're going because you trip and there's not room for someone else. So it's.
I'll stop talking to you
Oh
then.
no, I didn't mean that.